I don't think a lot of people have recognized what it is when it comes to Bitcoin and what it is down to its core. A lot of people have heard of cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, Ethereum. Bitcoin, I believe, isn't just a cryptocurrency. I think it stands for something bigger than that. I think it stands for digital capital, global capital. Something much, much bigger than just an everyday cryptocurrency coin. A lot of people say no one uses Bitcoin. It's a scam. It's a Ponzi scheme. I think there's proof to show us that people do use it, because when you look at your everyday utilities like MasterCard and Visa, it's outperforming those in terms of transactions. So people are using it. And I think the people that are using it have recognized what's there and what it could potentially be. In this video, we're gonna break down some things on why I believe Bitcoin is known as something we call digital capital or global capital. And it's not just a regular crypto. Let's take a step back a little bit and talk about technology adoption. Let's go back to the internet and let's look at where we are in terms of users, and let's talk about adoption. We're gonna be talking about two things in this video. Adoption, where the market is and what's happened. And then we're gonna be going over the charts and talking about market cycles and where we are on that standpoint of view in regards to the charts. If we look at the adoption curve and where we are in terms of users, we're not even at 1 billion users yet. If we go back to 1998, 1990, around 2000 is where the internet reached that amount of users. If we look at where the internet stands today, there's plenty more people using internet and technology in general. Technology consists of things like cell phones, right? A lot of people in the world have cell phones. A lot of people in the world use different applications and different technology vehicles on the internet, or different applications on the internet, if I must say. If we look at where we are right now, and in terms of where the internet was in 1999 and 2000, what were people saying about the internet then? They were afraid of it. They maybe didn't understand it. It was new. There were surely a lot of users already in that time. We're actually surpassing, so if we look at where we are, we're surpassing that internet curve, right? Where we are, we're actually starting to pass that. So the internet curve is the black line. The blue line is the crypto curve. So when we look at where we are, we're actually surpassing that time of users, of adoption. It's going faster than what happened in those times. But in those times, people were still afraid. People didn't understand maybe what was in front of them. People didn't recognize, or maybe pay attention or study, maybe put the time into gaining more knowledge and information on what this is and maybe what it could be. So this is something to pay attention to when we look at the broader scheme of things. I'm gonna go over more in this video, but one more thing I wanna add into that, and like I said, no one uses Bitcoin. It's a scam. It's a Ponzi scheme. Those are all outdated quotes. Those are all outdated sentences, things people have been saying. I think we're past that, because if we go to the top assets ranked by market cap in the world, we can see gold stands at number 1. And then we have some companies, right? Like this iPhone right here. You know, when you buy this iPhone every year, you fuel money into a company like Apple, number 2 here. Or if you buy a Samsung phone every year, you got that Microsoft. You know, some of these should be familiar for those of you guys who order on Amazon every day or every week. It might be a habit, right? I know I have that habit sometimes myself. But if we look at market cap and we go to number 12, who's at number 12 here in the world? Bitcoin. Out of 18,000 assets ranked by market cap, Bitcoin's number 12. So I think when we look at this type of quote, no one uses Bitcoin, I think it stands out that people do, and people have maybe recognized something here, because it wouldn't be number 12 on market cap, especially right now, right? So what I believe is there's staying power, and it showed us that it stood the test of time. These are just headlines, these things that people say, it's a scam, it's not gonna work, the government's gonna shut it down, if the internet shuts down, this and that. There's a lot of things. It can be hacked, it's never been hacked, the network's never been hacked. So these are what we like to say, sayings of the past. Things that people have been saying since Bitcoin actually emerged and came out, right? People have been saying this for years, but when we look at the headlines and we look at what's happening, right? It's like life. People can talk a lot, but you base things on actions, right? If we look at what the headlines are saying, it's old news. Bitcoin is dead. Bitcoin price bombshell, sell now, pain for investors, crypto crisis, the Bitcoin pyramid scheme continues to collapse. All these headlines, right? We can go back and find many of these, right? Look at the picture on the right. Look at that. That's Wall Street in New York. For those of you guys that live in New York, if you're in the States, you might be familiar with Wall Street, right? Where a lot of stocks and ETFs are on. They have a Bitcoin trust, an ETF, an exchange traded fund for Bitcoin. We're going to talk about what that is a little bit in this video because we're going to stay on the topic of adoption first before we go over to the charts. An ETF banner being hung up on Wall Street. What does that tell you? It's a scam? Do you think the people at the top, the wealthiest, would be hanging a banner on Wall Street if it was so-and-so maybe a scam? Personally, in my opinion, and again, this is not financial advice, guys. This is purely education for you guys. So personally, in my opinion, I don't think so. So let's move forward. When we talk about adoption, we can talk about countries. We can talk about institutional adoption. These are some things. Overall, the increasing adoption of Bitcoin and institutions reflects a broader acceptance of cryptocurrencies and really labeling it more as a legitimate asset class with potential benefits for both individuals, people like me and you, or institutions. So there's a list of countries that hold Bitcoin. They hold it. We can knock Germany off this list now. This is a little bit outdated. It might be more or less for some, but it's on average fairly what it is. If you look at who's number one, United States. United States number one, and then we got China, and then the United Kingdom. Germany sold all their Bitcoin. And if you go do some research on that, it's kind of a funny story. Who knows why they did that? We won't get into that too much. So El Salvador became the first country in the world to accept Bitcoin as legal tender. And as I'm making this video, recently, they've actually filed to pay off, I think, a $900 million debt. So the country, I think soon, that first adopted Bitcoin is about to pay off their debt. Isn't that interesting? India, Nigeria, some other countries in the world where when you look at the value of these countries' currency, you can't really put a value on it to Bitcoin in a way. Like, obviously Bitcoin to the dollar is what it's worth, but if you're talking about a country like Nigeria, where not everyone can open up a bank account, right? Not everyone has that type of access. So a vehicle like Bitcoin gives someone access to kind of being their own bank. Let's think of Bitcoin again as global capital, or let's think of Bitcoin again as digital capital or global capital, kind of like the internet on a bank. It gives people more access to things they don't actually have access to in all these really big countries. So with that being said, if you were to compare Bitcoin to the Nigerian currency, you can't really put like a value on it, right? It's what's the value on it compared to their currency, right? So it's something for the world, but one Bitcoin, no matter what country you're in, is worth what it's worth. A house in my city is probably worth much, much more than it is a house, say, in China or a house in South America, right? Bitcoin's worth what it's worth everywhere in all these countries. One is worth one, right? When you think about Bitcoin, think about digital gold. They share some of the same characteristics. Scarcity, right? Both are scarce when you think about digital gold. Physical, scarce in gold with a limited supply due to mining. Bitcoin, digital mining. You can mine both of them, right? One's limited due to mining. One is capped at 21 million in circulation. If we think about utility, gold is used a lot in electronics and known as a hard asset, a good store of value. If we think about Bitcoin, it's primarily used as a decentralized currency and also a store of value. So there's utility for both of them. I like to compare gold and Bitcoin to digital gold, basically. So there's another word called divisibility. Gold, you can break it down, you can divide it, but there's limitations to how much you can divide it in. Bitcoin is divisible, or you can divide it into 100 million different units, aka a Satoshi, right? So you can have an 001 of Bitcoin, a 0.1 of Bitcoin, 1 Bitcoin. You can break it down, just like gold, there's gram gold, there's an ounce of gold, there's a bar of gold, there's different units of gold. There's 1 unit of Bitcoin, there's half a unit, there's a 0.1, but then you can go all the way down to a Satoshi. So there's some comparison to gold and Bitcoin when you study the two together. There's a really good comparison and some opposites in there that compare to each other, contradict each other. What is an ETF? An ETF is an exchange traded fund. Go watch some of the videos in our crypto playlist if you have not already, where I explain what an ETF is and how it relates to what happened with gold in 2003 and 2004. Because in 2003 and 2004, gold launched its first ETF. So what happened this year in 2024? Bitcoin launched its ETF, which is why crypto went to Wall Street, as you can see here, making it more accessible for investors, because an ETF is an exchange traded fund. It allows investors to basically purchase a share that represents that asset class. So do more research on that, or go to the crypto playlist, guys. There's a couple videos in there already. Check it out and you'll get more information similar to some of the stuff I'm talking about. So what we're really going through, I think, is an evolution of money and the rise of digital cryptocurrency, or as I like to say, digital capital, digital money, right? It's global money. I think it's the rise and fall of money, and the evolution is going through this process. If you think about it, when I go to a store, I usually see everybody just tapping with their phone these days, not even using cash, or not even always using their card, right? We're just kind of like tapping, things are quick. Crypto is quick. If you look at money, right? We went from being able to send a transfer from a bank account in a week to maybe down to like 2 to 3 days. With Bitcoin, we can get it down to an hour, we can get it down to a minute, we can get it down to a second on the Lightning Network. And if you really go into the layer 3, you have milliseconds. You can transfer $1 million from here to anywhere in the world in an hour, in a second. It could be a Saturday night when the bank is closed. So when you think about the day and age that we live in, everything is faster. People might want to make decisions now. Right? The stock market is open about maybe 1,500, 1,800 hours a year, around there. Bitcoin is open 8,500 hours, around roughly there. You can look it up. Those numbers are quite accurate. We'll actually pop it up here for you guys. So if you look at how long it's open for, it's always running. The world's always running. The economy is always running. So it's really crucial to understand these things when we talk about adoption, because not only countries have adopted it, companies, right? Tesla, MicroStrategy, these are some familiar names. PayPal, for example, there's a lot of implementation going around, not only with countries, but a lot of these companies that are really, really big are maybe recognizing what it is in addition to all these countries. So when it goes back to adoption, guys, we're looking at a bigger picture of it, because when we go back to, again, assets, it's already number 12 in assets. What you don't want to be is 10 years, 20 years from now, it's up here, and what is the market cap up there? So my recommendation is this: if you're new, is to study Bitcoin. Study as much videos as you can. I can only go over as much in this video with you guys, because I've studied thousands of hours of it. You can join our academy too. We have a full bootcamp and crypto course inside the academy, and it's something that I teach on throughout the week, as well as I've been in Bitcoin and Ethereum for about 10 years now. And the reason I'm like this is because Bitcoin personally changed my life. So I really emphasize the energy about it. I'm really passionate about it because I know what it's done for me, and now that I understand it so much, I really know what it could do for others if they just implement the right strategies over a long-term cycle. We're gonna go over more stuff, guys, in part 2 of this video, okay? Part 2, we're gonna be talking about cycles and going over the charts more and seeing where we're at. This video was about adoption, so make sure you study some of these topics, guys. And my recommendation is, if you're new, get to 100 hours of studying and then get to 200 hours. It might seem like a lot, but if you compound your time, realistically, 3 hours a day, how many days a week, right? You got 7, 14, 21. So if you do 3 hours a day, you can really compound your time effectively through the month, right? Every week, you could do 2 hours a day of studying. That adds up 14 hours a week. If you do that through the month, you compound your study time. So my recommendation, try to grab 3 hours a day even, and build that compound time of studying it, because me, I have thousands of hours. Obviously, I couldn't go through everything in this video, so stay tuned for part 2, guys, and I'll see you there.